What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you something unusual in the form of a little progress update as I continue working on the review for Crimson Desert. Because it is certainly a large game, and as I'm moving to run through everything I want to run through, it occurred to me that the 100% for this is a painful experience. For reasons I'm about to get into, obviously, but just to kind of let everybody know where we are at, I didn't get a review key for this one when it released. I bought it and started playing it, of course, and then I'm at a little over 100 hours now, but I finished the main story around 85 hours played. I've been kind of no-lifing this since it released, to be honest. And with that done, I can now focus on all of the side content and as many of the achievements as I can grab before calling it a review, because while I am going to do as much of this as possible, I think anyone getting 100% on this is going to have to, I would say, really rely heavily on the community figuring things out together, so when the guides are finalized, everything will be known and figured out, because some of this stuff is just wildly tedious. Especially if you were trying to do it blind on your own, which we're about to get into. Now, I will say for the people wondering before we go too much farther, while I don't want this to be anything kind of associated with the review itself, the one thing I did want to mention here is that I have a couple of strong opinions about this having finished the story. One, I found that the game gets off to a pretty slow start. Like if I had only played this for like 20 or 30 hours, I think the beginning of the game probably would have been like a buy on sale situation for me. But in keeping up with it and continuing to push through, I did find that the game got a lot more enjoyable right around the 30-35 hour mark for me personally. And while that is, of course, good for me as I'm wanting to play through as much of it as possible here, it must be said that a game that gets good after that length of time is off to a rocky start. And I'm glad people are finding the enjoyment of it in spite of that, but I really think it must be said that the people who are bouncing off of this because of some of the way the beginning and stuff plays out, I totally get it. And then there was the other side of that. So I also mentioned that the story gets off to a rough start in my first impressions video as well, and having finished the main story, I've got some thoughts there. So the main story has a few really good moments. I don't want to spoil all of them, but there's a lot of these like really big fight sequences, some really great set piece stuff, and it's just really interesting on occasion. The problem is, the beginning of the story is really convoluted. A lot of stuff happens with no real, context or reasons why you are doing some of the stuff you're doing. And they do eventually sort of step away from that and back into, giving you a pretty clear narrative reason for your adventures, which I appreciated because it felt like the game got a little more back on track, so to speak. But the other sort of flip side of that even is that a lot of the game's main story can feel like filler because of the way it is presented, and there are whole areas of the map you only really go to as part of the main story. And it's usually filled with throwaway characters, a boss you'll never see again, despite them running away and not officially being killed or anything. And it's just the kind of thing they repeat over and over again, and it's to the story's detriment. I actually do think they could have stood to have shortened the narrative here, and it would have probably flowed a little better and also been a bit more approachable for people. Now, at the same time, I wouldn't say it's as difficult as people are making it out to be as well. This is an action adventure. If you are upgrading all of your stuff appropriately, then none of these fights are terribly difficult. But that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the 100% here and why I think it is, again, just a painful experience. So there are, I think, two ways to look at this: the actual game content and then the achievements. The game content-wise, I actually don't think is as bad if you just want to run through the story and then run through all the side content. There is a lot of it, don't get me wrong, but it's very doable. Where it gets tricky are what most of the achievements actually cover, which are the challenges. So in addition to all of the actual content, there are the in-game challenges, which are represented via a menu there. Some of these are kind of main story related, things you'll encounter just via exploring or unlockable mechanics, that sort of stuff. A lot of them are much more, let's say, niche. So, for instance, there are some of these challenges that you have to do for the 100% if you want the achievements anyway, that require you to like collect every insect in the game, and there's like 70 of them, and you don't really know about them or where they're from. The game doesn't give you, at least as far as I know, any way of figuring that out outside of just plain old exploration and trial and error, which is where I think members of the community are going to have to come together. But here's the crazy part. While the achievements are mainly focused on these challenges, the game doesn't let you see the vast majority of the challenges until you unlock them via the sealed artifacts. So in order to even see these challenges, you need these artifacts, which are themselves a collectible. There are 141 of them. Each one of them then shows you the corresponding challenge. You need to unlock that artifact. And I've already got that done, but just to be clear, before you can even see the challenges that you need for the achievements, you have to complete a 141 collectible pickup, which will see you running all over the map. Then, once you have all of those, in addition to the exploration and the challenges that are not unlocked this way, because there are some, like the exploration stuff, you get those by just doing them, you then have to actually go do the challenges. Now, some of them, and I do want to emphasize some, are retroactive, meaning that once you've picked that sealed artifact up, it'll unlock the challenge and you may have already completed it. However, most of them do not function this way, like anything with like combat or taking specific actions does not. Usually it's the stuff that focuses on knowledge and the things your character has learned that you won't have to repeat. So not only are there a couple hundred exploration challenges where you have to go somewhere, sometimes that's enough on its own, just finding the place, and then there are other exploration achievements where there's puzzles involved, like the Abyss area or the Ancient Ruins. You then have to complete a 141 collectible grind just to see the challenges that you then need to actually do to get the rest of the achievements, some of which are nasty. Like, I noticed the ones in the life subcategory in particular tend to be the ones where it's like, pick up every one of this type of thing, and there's just so many of those on top of the challenges that, while very doable, are like, this is going to take a couple of hours to figure out, because some of them require like special items you can find and use. You then have to find that item if you don't already know where it is. In some cases it has to be crafted. If you want to do that, you're going to have to get the materials for it, and so each one of those starts to rack up time after time just to complete them individually, let alone the entire category, which is what the achievement is for. And so, long story short, when you start putting all of that together, I think it is very apparent that while I wouldn't say this is a difficult thing to do in terms of like the actual like mechanical difficulty of it, it's just incredibly time consuming because of how much of it there is, alongside just how much setup some of this stuff takes in the first place. So putting all that together to sort of wrap up this little progress update here, I am going to do as much of this as I possibly can. I'm going to spend a few more days on it at the very least. There are quite a few of these that I know I can do for sure. But there are a few of these that I would not be surprised if it took like a couple of months to get a full, complete working guide after collating information from tons of people across the community. And those are the ones I will likely wind up waiting for the community to do just that on, once I get done with the stuff I know I can do on my own here. Which, truth be told, may or may not work out for the best either way, because I am almost certain with the reception that it got, Crimson Desert will likely receive follow-ups and, DLC, things like that in the future that I may want to cover. And so, regardless of whether or not I manage to 100% this over the next week or two, I am not going to be done with it. I do plan on playing this more. But as for the review, it will likely be out sometime this week. I would say probably Friday or Saturday at the latest, as I am right now just focused on finishing up the stuff I can do for sure. But that is pretty much going to do it for this progress update. Would love to know what you guys think of it down in the comment section below, which naturally means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.